Of course, Mike, the first thing they asked is, "Are we going to go have pie for Pie Day?" Uh, it makes a nerd proud. Anyhow, blessings to you all. Let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. We give thanks to you, Heavenly Father, for all that you have blessed us with, and we ask that you would continue to enlighten us with your wisdom. In Christ Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right. And so we're through Proverbs 20. Yay! We actually got through a chapter. And we're going to get into Proverbs 21 naturally, Lord willing. I've already had one blue screen of death this morning after setting up the broadcast. So we'll see if it stays alive long enough for us to actually get the broadcast done. And this is what happens when you're using a much older system to do things like of this nature.
So you have a Christmas wish list.
Yeah, Christmas wish list. But we'll do with what we can. We'll do what we can with what we have. And in that note, let's get into Proverbs 21, 1 through 8. The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked are sin. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. The getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and a snare of death. The violence of the wicked will sweep them away because they refuse to do what is good, what is just. The way of the guilty is crooked, but the conduct of the pure is right. So we begin with a statement of God is in control. And really, that's what we have here. The king's heart is a stream of water that is being formed by the Lord. What it does here is it takes a picture of the one whom we would see as incredibly powerful, and then depicts him as almost a plaything for the Lord. I'm not saying the Lord's like a precious child and just toying with us, but rather it's a way of demonstrating his power. It can conjure that image of, say, a kid playing in the fountain. It was just having a blast, cupping their hand over the water and then watching it shoot out, or seeing if they can spray their sister by redirecting the water, all those kind of things. It brings to mind that image of just playing with the water.
Youth.
Yeah, youth. Not so much as the youth, though, but
Playful youth.
but the playfulness, just the ability to control it. Let's say like some of those water table toys where you can set up these elaborate little constructions that can move water wheels and things like that. It's just the idea of that which seems so powerful being controlled. And that is what the proverb is attempting to convey. Of course, it's the joke that you were telling earlier is actually quite apropos for this one. The joke, so that nobody's left out in the cold, is that how do you make God laugh? Well, the way you make God laugh is, well, tell him your plans. But all right. But we begin with this reassurance that God is in control. And then it takes us into this saying, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. And so we get the reminder that God is in control, and then we move into why things seem so messed up. But it hits on something that's very true. Everybody thinks they're right. We have a joke at our pastors' conferences. Get 3 Lutheran pastors together, and you have 6 opinions. And it's just an illustration of just humanity in general. Everybody thinks that they're right. And so we go about attempting to convince everybody that we're right. And we also tend to use this to justify our actions. We can justify anything and everything that we want and desire. I was contemplating something along these lines earlier, and just as I'm out walking the dog and I don't have anything better to do but think. And I was contemplating how do we justify sports? We come up with all of these different things to say that sports is good. I'm not saying that sports is bad. And that they're wrong. I'm just saying that we take sports and we come up with all these justifications for why it is a good thing. And then I was also comparing that with, say, video games. People try to justify video games by conveying that they teach certain things. Again, I'm not making any judgment calls here. I'm just stating that these are just examples of things that we do to justify and that which we desire. Now we can move on into those questions of morality, and we even, I think, should address questions of morality in terms of sports and video games. Even as I sit before you as a person who plays video games, even as I'm attempting to play these games, I am attempting to play so in a morally upright fashion in the games that require, role playing. But moving on from that, we can also look at how we look to justify things that are outright evil. Let's take theft. How can we justify theft?
I got no food.
Exactly. The first thing that always comes up when I'm talking about the seventh commandment with my youth is, in which, for those of you who are trying to, maybe from a different accounting tradition, seventh commandment is you shall not steal. The first thing that they will respond to me with is, well, what if I'm hungry and I don't have money for food? Well, the fact of the matter is it's still wrong to steal. The situational ethics is probably one of the worst ways to approach morality. Because partly it says morality is a flexible thing, but morality isn't flexible. The fact of the matter is that it is immoral to steal. It does not matter the justification. So it doesn't matter if you're dead broke. It doesn't matter, well, you needed it so that you can buy medical supplies. It doesn't matter that if you're stealing the food because you're hungry. It doesn't even really matter if you're stealing the money to give to the poor. Yes, I know. One of my favorite Disney cartoon characters, Robin Hood, he is an immoral character, even as they try to paint him as morally upright. Yeah.
Does everyone else does it? Does that make it morally right?
Yeah. Does it? Everybody else does it? No. Everybody is a sinner. Sinners do bad things. Okay. Or as my mom liked to always say, well, if everybody was jumping off the cliff, would you jump off with them? No, Mom. Yeah, boy, that would deflate my argument fast. But really, everybody thinks they're right, and so they come up with attempts to justify everything that they desire. But no matter what our justifications are, God sees to our heart. And he's going to see how our pride is leading us astray. What this says is that we are not the arbiters. I think I misspelled that. We don't actually get to say what is right and wrong. That's a key point that I think we need to be making. Because everybody is approaching questions of morality in these days is that it is our point of view. In reality, for the Christian in particular, the statement of moral statements is a restatement of what has already been given to us. It probably just made no sense. To put it this way, we could look at it. This is how it is explained in how we talk about the nature of the Trinity, a concept that is beyond human understanding. And it simply goes along the lines of, we confess that which we have been given to confess. We really cannot say any more than what has already been said to us. So in the case of morality, it's not we who are developing an idea of morality. It is simply confessing that which has been given. And in the case of morality, that which we can confess as moral behavior is that which has been outlined in the Ten Commandments. And in the explanation of the Ten Commandments. I'm not necessarily referring to the explanation, that we see in the context of, say, Luther's Small Catechism. Where did... Oh. My pen is upside down. That's why it's not working. Let me fix my letters here so that they actually look legible.
You know, when they say our pride will lead us astray, and that also our ego.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be judged for being wrong.
Yeah, we don't want to be judged for being wrong, and that is true. Everybody wants to look good, and that's not necessarily a bad desire. It becomes bad when we twist wrong and say it's right. In a very real sense, that with, like, say, Proverbs 4, haughty eyes and a proud heart, and the lamp of the wicked are sin. These, and what it's saying is, the eyes and the heart, they show what is wicked. And that goes back to, but the Lord weighs the heart. And also the way we direct our focus.
I think it would go under 8 also, because the guilty is crooked. They want to state what they want, whereas the conduct of the pure is willing to admit they were wrong.
Yes, in a very real sense. 8 is also a statement of that. One thing I want to point out with chapter 21 is it tends to be a bunch of proverbs that don't have a whole lot of relation to each other, but they are a comparing and contrasting of what is good and what is wrong. So while you're not going to find any real combining theme to them, you are still going to get this compare and contrast. In a way, they build off of these first two proverbs. So, yeah. All right, moving onwards. I do want to get through this.
Yes.
9 through 15. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no mercy in his eyes. When a scoffer is punished, the soul becomes wise. When a wise man is instructed, he gains knowledge. The righteous one observes the house of the wicked. He throws the wicked down to ruin. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered. A gift in secret averts anger, and a concealed bribe strong wrath. When justice is done, it is a joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Alright. First thing I want to point out is the trope of the nagging wife or the quarrelsome wife is really as old as time. This is not a new thing. And it serves a purpose. It acts as a stand-in to illustrate that a house filled with strife is just not a great place to be. In a way, it's stating the obvious. It takes that picture of the wife who is always complaining about everything the husband's doing and complaining about the kids and all of that, and just throws it into this and goes, look, this isn't a good thing. It is a way of saying that the peaceful house should be pursued. And who wants to be in a house where one of the people is just always picking a fight? I can remember years ago, I had a roommate who was just absolutely enthralled with the brand new MTV show. Now I can't remember the name of the show, but the show was where they took a bunch of college age people and threw them into a house for a year and filmed them. And I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but he loved the show. I'd watch because I didn't have anything better to do, and all I can remember was just it was the bickering, the chaos, and years and a couple of years down the road, I can remember that when they were interviewing the producers of the show, one of the things that they said they would set out to do is find people who could not get along. They would always look for that one, at least one person who's going to just stir the pot to stir the pot. And I'm sitting there watching this going, I couldn't live like this. I would be the one who'd just come in, shut the door, and never come out. I would be the one living in the corner in the housetop. And the fact that people wanted to be on that show just baffled me. Really? You want to go and endure that? And then have them film it? But it comes to, but this proverb, I mean, it picks up on that reality and says, look, this is not good. A peaceful house is to be desired. And at the same time, as we're looking at this, even as we have the trope standing in for the idea of the quarrelsome house, the idea of the house does extend beyond the literal home to also include the city and country, and for that matter, for the world. And we'll see this again, because later on in the chapter, the proverb is going to be repeated, but this time it's going to appear in a larger context, to where it's not limited to just, one small part of the house. It's expanded beyond that. And what we can take away is the idea that peace is to be desired, and seeking peace is a thing which we should be doing. It's not a thing that we can ignore. And at the same time, we need to acknowledge that it is sin that creates this house of strife. And we see this play out in the rest of the Proverbs that are illustrating what happens with evil. And we go to verse 10. The soul of the wicked desires evil, his neighbor finds no mercy. The righteous one observes the house of the wicked and throws the wicked down into ruin. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor causes harm. The giving of a bribe, of trying to buy favor, receives strong wrath. But on the other hand, the gift can assuage anger. The wise will learn, and it will benefit the people around them. But strife, that sin, it destroys, it disrupts, it causes harm. And we can look at what is happening in our world. Even sociological studies have noticed this. Probably one of the most obvious points of common strife that we see is evidenced in our divorce rates. And one of the things that has been noted in sociological studies is the amount of stress and hurt that is taken upon the children in cases of divorce. Even in the so-called amicable divorces. I'm not talking about the divorces where, one spouse is leaving for a incredibly good reason, say adultery, or they're getting the tar beaten out of them. Those are something very straightforward evidence of strife. And usually when the spouse is being hurt, the children are hurt too. Even within these so-called amicable divorces, well, we just don't love each other anymore. That kind of things. An incredible amount of strife affects the kids. They're torn between their two parents. They're wondering, can I love one or the other? Can I love them both? What is going to happen to my house? Was it because of me? Was it, what are my friends going to think? Where are we going to live? Whose house do I get to be in tonight? All these different things coming together. And sometimes we even see it playing out with the kids playing the parents off of each other. But my point is the sociological studies show that it is actually hurtful to the children to be going through a divorce. And that just gives a physical example of the evidence of the strife sin causes. It happens in other ways, but this is just an easy, straightforward example, in that even the secular world has been picking up on, even though they don't really want to admit it. It's actually kind of funny how much the secular world will admit that there's a problem, but they still want to have their cake. It's kind of like a diabetic diving into a bag of sugar. They know it's bad, but they still want to do it. But again, that goes back to that proverb we had earlier. Every man thinks he's right. With that, we got to wrap up. as we're going to be having services really shortly here. And so with that, blessings to you all, and we'll see you again next week. Do keep in mind that for Holy Week we will